Hi everyone, and you are welcome to this lecture, datetime module. In this lecture, we will learn how to deal with date and time programmatically. Therefore, I will introduce datetime module. Then we will see how to define date, time, and date and time, how to parse a string into date and time, how to convert date and time into a string. Also, we will learn about date and time arithmetic. And finally, I will end up this lecture by a quick summary. So let's get started. First of all, let me start by defining what datetime module is. Datetime is a built-in module providing classes to work with date and time. And you have to know that below these classes, we have number of functions to deal with dates, times, and time intervals. Without any further delay, let's move to PyCharm IDE to see how we can use these classes and functions in action. First of all, let's import from datetime module what we are going to use. Also, let me show you this function. So from datetime, I will say import time, date, datetime, time delta. And from date utility, I will import time zone or TZ. After that, I just defined a simple function, its name show date and time. It takes one object datetime, then within the function, it will print the type of the object, the value of the object. If the object is from the type date or from the type datetime, the year, month, and day will be printed. If the object from the type time or datetime, hour, minute, and second will be printed also. So this function is just simply for printing the values of the objects that we are going to deal with in this lecture. Now let's talk about how we can create date, time, and datetime. So let me move to a new line. Let's first create a date. So I will say date1, for example, equal to, and I will use date class that I already imported from datetime. And we know if we want to define a date, we have to specify three things. We have to specify the year, the month, and the day. So for example, 1992 in May 30. So in this case, I got a date object. Let me print this date to check what I will get. You see, this is the value. And if I print the type of this object, let's see what we will get. It's from datetime.date. In other words, it's from the date class. Sometimes once I got this object, I need to get access to each value inside it. For example, I need to get access to the year individually, or to the day individually, or to the month individually. So how to do that? It's quite simple. So let me show you the year, for example. Simply we say date1.year. If I run, you will see here 1992 because this is the year. And we will do exactly the same thing for, as you see here, month. It's available. So the first one is month, and also day is available. In this example, I have shown how we can create the date object by ourselves. But sometimes maybe I want to create the current date, which means the date of today. How we can do that is quite simple. So I will say now date1 again instead of this. I will say date, which is the same class, but from this class I will use the function today. Today is a function that will give me the current date. So if I print now date1 to check the value, run. As you see, I get this date, which is 1st of September 2020, which is the current date. Date1 now is just a date object, and you can access to the individual components, year, month, day, exactly how we did in the previous step. Now let's talk about time. And you will see that dealing with time is quite similar to dealing with date. So I want to create, for example, a time object of the following time. For that, I will use the class time, which has been imported from datetime module. And then you have to specify also three things: hours, minutes, and second. Let me say I want the hour 12, 30, 59, for example. And then let me print the value time1, run. As you see here, I got the time that has been created. And then if I print the type of this object, run. As you see here, it's from the class time. Now let's say I want to access only to the minutes, let's say. So you have to say the object name dot and then minute. you can do the same thing exactly to get access to hour and second. So if I run, you will see here 30. Why 30? Because I have only 30 minutes inside this time. You have to know also that inside time class, there is no function that's able to give you the current time as we have in date class in order to get the current date. Now let's move forward and let's talk about how we can create a date time object, which means one object combined together, the date and time. In order to do that, let me say date time equal to, and then I will say date time. Date time also, it's a class, has been imported from datetime module. And here you have to specify 6 values. As you see here, I have to specify year, month, day for date part, hour, minute, second for time part. So let me say 19, 92, May, 30, and the hour is 12, 35, and then let me say 59. If I print date time right now, run, I will get now this object which has date and time together. And if I try to check what is the type of this object, so print type date time, run. As you see here, it's from the class date time. Now let me show you the function that has been defined at the beginning of this lecture. If you remember, I defined this function, show date and time. And this function will help me to print easily all the objects that I'm going to define. So I will say show date and time, and I will give date time object, run. As you see here directly, this object gives me the type, the value of the year, month, day, and the value of hour, minutes, and seconds. And here, for example, we have 59 because the second here is 59. So it's quite straightforward function. Now let's talk about some useful functions that usually could use from datetime class. If you see here in this example, I created the datetime object by myself. However, sometimes I could need to create this object in different ways. For example, I will assume that I have date object and I have time object, and I want to create datetime object from these two objects together. How I am able to do that? It's quite simple. Let me say date time equal to, and here I will use the class datetime and then the function combine. And this combine function takes two parameters, the date and the time that you want to combine. So here I will say date 1 and then time 1. Date 1 and time 1 are the objects that have been previously defined. And after that, I will show the date and time and run. As you see here, I will get an object. It's type from date time and it has the following values, the total value and the individual values. The second function that I want to talk about is now function. And now function is a function will help you to get the current date and time together. So date time equal to datetime.now. And if I run, you will see that the object is from the class datetime. And this lecture right now is recorded on 1st of September, 10:56 p.m. And these are the individual values for this datetime object. If you remember in the previous lecture, we mentioned the concept of UTC, and we know that UTC is the time at longitude 0. We can get access to this UTC time by using UTC now instead of now. If I run, you will see now that the time is different, the same date, but the time is different. And the difference is 8 hours. Which means now the time in UTC or in longitude 0 is 2:55:7 a.m. And here all the individual values have been printed. So my friends, by reaching this point in this lecture, you should be able to create date object, time object, and datetime object.